Hey, in this video, we are talking about Brownsburg and actually 5 reasons why, if you're open geographically to a lot of different places around the Indianapolis Metro, maybe why you should consider Brownsburg. So we're going to get into the map a little bit in this video today, just to get into some of the more details that if you're researching it or you've thought about it in the past, or even if you've passed Brownsburg over, some of the details that may be a little harder to notice. So stay tuned. Hey, I'm Jason Compton with the Living in Indianapolis channel. If it's your first time to the channel, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. So again, we're going to get into Brownsburg, and if you have questions about Brownsburg, or if it's a good fit for you, or really anywhere else in the Indianapolis Metro, then make sure you reach out any way that you know how. We'll always have your back with those questions, and we'll certainly have your back when it comes time for you to make your move anywhere in the Indy Metro. All right, so Brownsburg. Many of you maybe have heard of it, some of you maybe not. So we're gonna dive into the map just a little bit here, like I said, just to kind of get into some of those details that are a little harder to notice about Brownsburg, and maybe why it's a fit, or of course, maybe why it isn't. Maybe you wanna eliminate it. But it's been pretty surprising to a lot of people as being an option. So if you're looking for, let's say, an alternative to the north side, like Carmel, Fishers, Westfield, places like that, and you are a little bit more open to areas, Brownsburg on the west side, it could be a fit potentially. But of course, if you need to be on the south side of Indy or someplace else, or on the north side, just because that's where your work is, then maybe not. So let's look at the map here. And first of all, we've got Indianapolis, obviously right here in the center. And then Brownsburg is over here to the west, maybe a little bit northwest. And actually, when you get into the borders of it and where it really truly is, it is more northwest. Because when you look on Google Maps and other map programs out there, sometimes they don't quite outline all of the borders of a town or a city. And so you can come all the way up here to the north of all of this and still be Brownsburg. You can go further to the east over here. You can go a little further south and west. And it's a little bit more Brownsburg than what you think. So that's always something to make sure you remember, that when you're looking at a map and it's outlined like this, it's usually not as far out there as what you might think. So Brownsburg and Indianapolis, they do share a border. So we'll get into that, of course, in just a minute and kind of show you how that works with, in particular, the schools. So as I said, it's a really good alternative to a lot of the northern suburbs up here. And the reason I say that is because it's exceptionally nice. It's very, very quiet, and but it still has enough of what you're going to need on a daily basis. So if we dive down in here a little bit, and by the way, Brownsburg is about 33,000 people or so right now, and it's grown over the years, and it's continuing to grow, but it's not very likely going to be anywhere near the size of Carmel or Fishers, places like that, which are over 100,000 people now. It's going to grow, it's got a little bit of room to grow, but to get up to 100,000, we would be talking probably decades before any of that happened. But even being a little small, it still has, if you zoom in here, I-74 coming through here. I mean, everything commercial-wise that you would ever need. As you can see, Culver's here, you have all these hotels right here, there's a Walmart, there's actually a Kohl's and a Lowe's over here to the west. Here's a giant Kroger right here. All up and down Green Street here, it's just extremely commercial. And if we take a look just at the satellite, what that looks like, so much is through here that you're going to find across the country, commercial-wise. So if you were to live in any of these neighborhoods, or let's say over here in these neighborhoods, you'd be tucked away and fairly quiet and really not feel like you're in anything relatively busy. Now, it's not terribly busy, but relatively busy. But all you do is pop out of your neighborhood, and then boom, you're just a couple minutes from all of this stuff that you're ever going to need on a daily basis. Really pretty nice. Oh, clicked on a little too much there. So if you're thinking the north side, it has everything that I need. Well, Brownsburg could also have everything that you need. It just depends on what you want to be, I guess, close to. And it's also one of the things too, that if you live in a town or a city outside of exactly where you want to be or what you're interested in, like a lot of people are interested in downtown Carmel. Well, downtown Carmel is really great, but a lot of the people that go to downtown Carmel for dinner or entertainment or anything like that, they don't live in downtown Carmel. They might live in Carmel, but they also might live in Brownsburg, Indianapolis, Westfield, Fishers, Noblesville, Greenwood, Greenfield. We live in Greenfield, and we visit downtown Carmel sometimes just for what it offers. But we go to other places too, not just downtown Carmel. There's a lot more out there than what people realize. And so if you live in Brownsburg, it's not like you're going to be missing out at all. There are nearly 2 million people in the whole Indianapolis Metro, and Carmel only has about 100,000 of them. Brownsburg, you're looking at, like I said, 33,000 or so, something like that. So a lot of people are pretty happy living there in Brownsburg because they have everything that they need. So it could be a really, really good alternative for you, and especially price-wise. So if we take a look at Brownsburg, if you're trying to get in here, and this is just looking over here at Brownsburg at all the homes on the market right now, if you've got a budget, let's say, of less than $500,000, well, you have actually a good number of choices in Brownsburg. There's a bunch in here, quite a bit. And if you were to look at a place, and for being smaller, like 33,000 people, this is a lot of opportunity. And if you look at a place that's more expensive, like a Zionsville, which is really similar in size, under $500,000, there's nearly nothing, almost nothing in Zionsville. We're talking a very small handful of homes. But in Brownsburg, you do have more opportunity, so it is less expensive. We've got this outlier right here, 1.3 million, but I've been past this place before and taken a look at it. I know this place is on 10 acres. Just the other day, I was driving right by it. It's only been on market for 3 days, but 10 acres, Brownsburg, 1.3. If you're in 10 acres in Indianapolis, Carmel, Fishers, Westfield, a lot of different places, it's going to be more expensive than that. So that's fairly reasonable over here in Brownsburg. But under $500,000, quite a bit of opportunity in there. All right, second thing I like about Brownsburg, and of course, almost anywhere you go, whether you feel like it's important to you or not, are the schools. So the schools, if you don't care about the schools, that's great, but ultimately, if you sell your place, it will be a factor. It definitely will, but it isn't always a factor whenever you're selling your home. Some people just, it doesn't really matter to them what the schools are like, but it can. It can affect a pretty big pool of buyers, but Brownsburg schools are extremely highly rated. And it's kind of that way when you get into all the cities and towns that surround Indianapolis. Most of them are very highly rated, but Brownsburg is way up there. And somehow they just kind of fly under the radar, honestly, with all of that. But fantastic school system. But one of the unique things about it, so if we zoom in here on the map a little bit, here's Brownsburg High School. Mark this up a little bit for you. So here's Brownsburg High School. But if we zoom in just a little bit more on that, a lot of the schools in Brownsburg, so here's Brownsburg East Middle School, well, not too far away, you actually have a Brownsburg West Middle School right here. They're not that far at all. And then you get into some of the elementary schools around. So there's one right here. You get a little bit further south, and you'll have some others pop up as well. Well, they're not popping up at the moment. But there are, here's Crossroads Elementary, White Lick Elementary, there we go. So a lot of the schools, so if you're looking here at Brownsburg East and Brownsburg High School, which are still on the map, kind of right in this particular area here. if we look at those are fairly centrally located, which is kind of nice. And the reason I say it's kind of nice is because, if you're driving to school or you're driving your kids to school, then it's all pretty close to the central part of Brownsburg. You don't have to go from one side of the town to the other, which can be a little bit annoying. Trying to cross traffic, not that there's a lot of traffic in Brownsburg, but it just adds some minutes to your drive. And if your kids ride the bus, it can be some shorter bus rides as well. So it's pretty neat that a lot of them are centrally located in there, and that's something that's maybe not important to you, but I would think it's at least a little neat fact to know about them, because if you get into some of the other suburbs, they can get a little bit more spread out. I wouldn't say tremendously, but they're going to be more noticeably spread out than some of the schools that you have there in Brownsburg. All right, another point to consider for Brownsburg is that even though, again, on this map, it looks like it might be a little bit disconnected from Indianapolis, it isn't. The border of Brownsburg is roughly right through here. And you have Indianapolis, and then once you get over into Hendricks County, which is where Brownsburg's located, Indianapolis is in Marion County, your address generally for the most part switches. You've got a few exceptions here and there, but really not very many, honestly. So the access to Indianapolis is really pretty easy. So if you go down I-74, you can get right into 465. You can take 136 all the way down here into Indianapolis. And I-74 just doesn't have all that much traffic on it. It's really pretty easy to travel up and down, and this isn't a very big distance mileage-wise. So if we look at this just as an example, let's say you wanted to go from Brownsburg, so this is the heart of Brownsburg. Of course, you can vary a little bit where you are in Brownsburg. You can be further to the east, you can be further to the west, north, south, and all of that, but just say centrally located, and you wanted to go to, say, Victory Field, which is where the Indianapolis Indians play. It's the AAA team for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Awesome thing to do in Indianapolis. We actually did it here recently, and we go to quite a few games during the summer. It's inexpensive. It's one of the inexpensive family things that you can do as long as you're not buying a bunch of beer and food and things like that. But the tickets themselves to get in, it is extremely reasonable for a sporting event. If you go to a Colts game or Pacers game or Fever game or something like that, it's going to be more expensive. But from Brownsburg, you're looking just to get to Victory Field. Now, of course, when you get to Victory Field, you run into a little bit of traffic because everybody's trying to park and get into a parking garage. But, for the most part, you're looking at right at 30 minutes to a little bit under that. That is not bad. That's no worse than really anywhere else outside of Indianapolis. And honestly, if you're living inside of Indianapolis, just to get to Victory Field, it's probably going to take you 20, 25 minutes, something like that anyway. So this is pretty reasonable. So the access to get to downtown, and Victory Field is right downtown Indianapolis, right in here. And it's super close to a lot of different things that you're going to find in downtown. It's just a pretty easy drive, honestly. It's mostly interstate to get there. You can see you're going down I-74, down 465, and then you hit I-70 all the way into downtown Indy. So you're not stopping. It's 21 miles, and you're not stopping until you get off of 70 right there in downtown Indianapolis. Not bad at all. So that's one of the concerns a lot of people will have from time to time. Just, hey, I don't know how long this is going to take me because it looks like it's really pretty far out there, when in fact it's really not. It's really pretty close. All right, one of the other things that I particularly find this one as one of the most attractive pieces about Brownsburg, and it's not actually part of Brownsburg. It's a different place, but it is super close, you can see here, to Eagle Creek Park right here. Unbelievably close to it. Now, Eagle Creek Park is an Indianapolis park. It's a municipal park, so it's one of the city parks, and it is enormous. Eagle Creek Park, it's one of the biggest municipal parks in the entire country. And if you live near Eagle Creek Park, I think that you'd probably want to get a season pass to it, because you do have to pay to get into this one, to drive into it, even to walk into it or ride your bike into it. It's a little cheaper to do that. But if you're taking a car in, then you got to pay a daily fee. It's not very expensive, not very expensive at all. I think it's $5 right now to get in there, but it's still a little bit annoying to have to pay to go in. But because of that, it feels more like a state park, but it is not. It's a municipal park. But you can get a season pass, so you could go in there for one fee the entire year, and it's something that I would absolutely recommend. This place is ridiculously nice. It is super, super cool. So first of all, you have the giant Eagle Creek Reservoir, which is really very nice. So if we look here on the satellite, it's super quiet. A lot of people with sailboats out here. There's even competitive rowing out here. You can see the Indianapolis Rowing Center right here. Really, really, really nice. It's different than Geist Reservoir and Morse Reservoir, which have a lot more skiing and jet skis and just a lot busier. Eagle Creek is extremely quiet. And it's kind of interesting on this satellite how this border right here, these satellite pictures are taken at some different times. This one is in the winter, this one is in the summer, but it should look more uniform than it does here. But you could come down 56th Street from Brownsburg, right here, cross the bridge, and get into the park right here. Here's the gate. That's one of them at least. It's not the only way into the park, but once you're in here, all of these roads, these are not roads that you can just speed down. You'd be driving fairly slowly in your car, but all of these roads you can actually run on. So I used to run and do triathlons a lot, and they actually have several triathlons every single year in Eagle Creek Park. You actually swim from Eagle Creek Beach right here. There's actually a beach. You can go and swim in the reservoir, and actually there's a nice little picture of it right there. So that's a triathlon starting. So you can jump into the water, do the swim. Super fun events, that's for sure. That is absolutely for sure. But you can ride your bike, you can run, and it is really quite safe doing that on these roads. The cars aren't going that fast. And then all through the trees here, there are all kinds of trails. So you can walk along the trails. You can't mountain bike on these trails, but you can certainly run and walk on the trails. There are longer ones, there are shorter ones. There's a huge variety going through there. And they have things going on Eagle Creek kind of all the time throughout the entire year. It is a phenomenal park. At least I'm a pretty big fan of it. So if I lived in Brownsburg, I would have a season pass to this park, and I would certainly spend quite a bit of time in there. Myself, I would spend time in there, my wife and I, and with our kids. I think it's a huge advantage living over near Eagle Creek Park, without a doubt. All right, so one of the other things that is actually, I think, a pretty big positive for Brownsburg, at least in a lot of people's eyes, when they're looking to move to this area and they want something fairly new. Brownsburg does have some older homes going through it, but it has a lot of homes that were built in the 90s and 2000s and all that too, but Brownsburg was still relatively small then. So it's pushing through 33,000 people now and continuing to grow, and the way that you do that is through new construction. So when we look back at this is just the MLS, and we look at a lot of these homes under $500,000, a lot of these are new construction homes all through here. And I mean, these are brand new homes, and some of these haven't even been built yet, but they are being advertised, spec homes by the builder. Just super nice new construction, really nice new neighborhoods. That isn't for everybody, of course. Some people like a lot more maturity, and you're not going to really get that in a new construction neighborhood, but you can get a brand new house. And of course, over the period of 5, 10, 15 years, it will mature over time. But these are in some really great locations, under 500. You can get, of course, some more expensive, newish, like this one here. I was actually in this house not that long ago. This is a phenomenally nice home, but the neighborhood is really quite new. And you can see here from the outside, the night picture, it's a little bit more difficult to see, but very, very nice. This one was recently built, so 2017. That's not exactly new construction, but it's inside of 10 years, and you can already start to see some of the maturity developing in that neighborhood, although it's still pretty obvious it's not that old. But there's a tremendous amount of opportunity in new construction going all the way through here in Brownsburg, under 500, which is really pretty nice. So there are other suburbs out there around Indianapolis where you can get new construction, but it is getting more difficult to stay in that under 500K or so range for something like that. So I think it's another advantage for Brownsburg. Okay, one last point with Brownsburg is that when you look on a map like we're doing right now, and you just want to know what's out there as far as Brownsburg goes, well, this is a little bit more of a limited view of what's available in Brownsburg. So this search that I have set up, if you're looking on, let's say, Realtor.com or Zillow or something like that, but this is in the MLS. They all get their information from us, and I put Brownsburg in here. Any amount, there's no limit on the price range for this at all, and all the active homes that are out there, but actually that is a little bit limiting just putting Brownsburg in there. So what you probably should do if you're interested, let's say in Brownsburg because of the school district, you really want to get in there into the Brownsburg schools, then you should search by the schools. Because if you look especially right over here, these, all Brownsburg addresses, Brownsburg. But if I take the Brownsburg filter off and just have Brownsburg schools, these pop up. These have Indianapolis addresses. So if you look here, Coventry, Indianapolis, Coventry's just the street, but we have Brownsburg schools. So you can get, I would say, a little bit confused sometimes whenever you get over to the borders of some of these cities and towns, close to Indianapolis, but it has an Indianapolis address, and it's not any one of the Indianapolis school districts. It might be one of the ones that you're interested in, which could be the Indianapolis school districts for sure, but in this case here, Brownsburg, it's a pretty good example of something like this actually happening all around Indianapolis, honestly, where you can get just a different address for a different school district. So it's one of the things that you need to make sure that you keep in mind is that when you look at Brownsburg, there may be a little bit more opportunity than you think. And the way that you search for those homes, you need to take into careful consideration. So if you ever have questions about this, of course, reach out. This happens often with people looking and they get to those borders. So it can get a little bit confusing. All right, so there you have it. There are some points about Brownsburg that maybe are a little bit hard to research or just hard to notice. So if you have questions, again, about Brownsburg at all, reach out any way that you know how, and we'll catch you in the next one.